It was the wildest 16 months in Wisconsin politics since the era of Joe McCarthy, the political drama over Act 10.
Wisconsin was the first state in the nation to allow collective bargaining until Scott Walker repealed most of the labor law and then became the first governor in the nation to survive a recall election 15 months later. Journal Sentinel reporters Jason Stein and Patrick Marley wrote a book about the battle between the Republican governor and the unions. It's called More Than They Bargained For: Scott Walker, Unions, and the Fight for Wisconsin. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
You know, and all of us who went through this period will never forget it. And we'll probably never see a time in our history like this again. But what was it like for the two of you? Because I think everybody has a very unique impression of that tumultuous time.
You know, it was interesting. We got a little advance word that something was brewing, and the governor went and briefed the Republican caucus of senators on it. And we were there right as they came out of caucus, and we got a sense of what this was going to be. And we knew from covering government for as long as we have that this was a really big deal. But we had no idea what was about to unfold. And over the weekend, you know, we started to see things build up. And then by the next week, it was just these massive protests that were unlike anything since the 1960s.
Yeah, did you believe what you were seeing?
No, we really couldn't. I mean, and I always told people that I'm not sure I would want to cover a bigger story in Madison because I fear it would be some kind of horrific disaster. You know, I mean, that it was so big that you realized in the moment you were living it that you were seeing something that was historic.
Mm-hmm. And there was a lot happening that even you and I didn't know what was going on, and the people that were at home were watching, that you talk about in the book that's really fascinating. Stories of just how precarious and complicated the situation was. For example, when the governor wanted to clear the Capitol Rotunda, and UW Police Chief Sue Reisling, who was in charge of the interior of the building, said no. Talk about that a little bit.
This would have been on Friday, February 18th. This would have been the day after Senate Democrats left Wisconsin for Illinois. At that point, there were many thousands of people in the Capitol. The order came down that the Capitol would be cleared. The chief told us, who was in charge of the interior at the time, said that she felt that that was not practical. She obviously has a lot of experience dealing with crowds from UW football games. And as you recall, we had a tragedy at a UW football game in the early 1990s, and she was chief then. So her goal was to prevent something like that from happening again, a stampede, a problem like that. And she said, you know, practically, I don't think we can do this. Ultimately, the administration saw that that was the way to go, and they pulled back, and it took a couple weeks and a judge's order before the Capitol was ever finally cleared of demonstrators.
And you also uncovered the numbers that were presented, that the size of the crowd weren't necessarily jiving with the official estimate and what Sue Reisling said.
That's right. Every day that the Department of Administration, which runs the Capitol Police, would issue total numbers, or almost every day, of this is the number of protesters in the Capitol, this is the number of protesters on the grounds. And it wasn't until months later, as we were researching the book, that we found out that she believed that those numbers were grossly understated in some instances.
Well, now with the benefit of hindsight, who do you think were the winners and the losers in this story?
I think Governor Scott Walker is the clear winner. He was the first governor to win a recall. Only 3 governors in our country's history have faced recall elections. He won it, and it launched him onto a national stage. He was welcomed as a hero at the Republican National Convention. He's got this massive fundraising base. So I think he's a clear winner of this so far.
And the loser?
Clearly, the unions have left this in a position that they were not in before. I mean, they certainly had a level of grassroots engagement with people that is different, but in terms of their financial abilities, their membership, things like that, they have definitely, suffered a loss here. And it's also, we've seen the effects in other states as well. One other winner that people sometimes forget is the president, who chose to stay above the fray or out of the fray in Wisconsin and ultimately managed to win re-election both in the state and nationally.
And more than they bargained for. Who's that aimed at?
You know, I really think everyone got more than they bargained for. I mean, I think that the unions were certainly not expecting that things would go as they did. I think the administration was not expecting the protests to be as big or as sustained. They certainly weren't expecting recalls. So I think the reason we chose that title is that it wasn't aimed at any one person, that really everyone had a little bit of a surprise.
Best of luck to you both. Good luck with the book.
Thank you.
With us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much.
We'll be right back.